This week was Valentine's Day, Tuesday, I think it was. And I thought, I'm getting desperate for things to do on a Saturday morning. So I'll do something on Valentine. I sort of expanded around it and started looking at saints in general. Okay, so I don't know if this applies to any of you, but can you see that?
Yeah.
Your Google search history, I'm surprised you even made it as far as the front gate. So it's kind of like just to start it off. Yeah, just a general broad brush look at the saints. A saint is someone with an exceptional degree of holiness, and the process of canonization comes from the Catholic Church. It's called glorification in the Orthodox Church. The name saint derives from the Latin sanctus. In Greek, it's haios, meaning holy. If anybody's ever been to a Greek island on holiday, you would perhaps stayed in somewhere called Haios, Nikolaios, or somewhere like that, which basically means saint, whatever. Yeah. Other religions have similar concepts. General requirements are being an exemplary model, showing extraordinary fervor, being a worker of miracles, or perceived as working miracles, I should say. An intercessor, which I think is that somebody who negotiates between God and the earth. A life not necessarily requiring material attachments or comforts, so ascetics maybe, and having a special revelationary relationship to the holy. That's not my wording, that's straight off the internet, that one. Okay. A canonization can be a lengthy process. In fact, it can go on for centuries. Quite often it takes hundreds of years for saints to actually become such. Saint Peter, Simon Peter, the rock, Saint Peter the Apostle, crucified in 64 AD, upside down apparently. He is the gatekeeper to heaven. He holds the keys to the pearly gates, so you have to get past him to get in. This is not a saint, this is a church, but obviously you recognize this as St Paul's Cathedral. The name of St Paul, originally Saul of Tarsus, who was in fact pretty anti-Christian in his early life, but he had the Damascene conversion on the road to Damascus. And he saw a vision and became a Christian, and quite a serious one after that, eventually. Spent a lot of time in Malta. St Paul's Grotto in Malta is named after him. There you go. This is St Christopher. No relation to anybody that I know, but he apparently helped a child to cross a river, and the child turned out to be a sort of version of Jesus Christ. So, I think he's been discredited now, but he's the patron saint of travellers. So lots of people wear medals, St Christopher medal, which represents travelling. Okay, here's the originator of this nonsense. St Valentine, while in prison, he fell in love with the jailer's daughter. And when he was being taken to be killed on the 14th of February, he wrote a love letter to her and signed it, "From your Valentine, dust." I was born. So next time you get a Valentine card, remember what it's all about. Yes. I think he was, never mind, I'll get back to it. Here's another picture of him. He was preaching in prison. But I think he was one of the victims of Diocletian, and I'll talk about later. But there you go. And this is my Valentine's Day present. Some people have seen it already.
Oh,
Gorgeous. Oh,
That's very romantic, Graham.
I think that's beautiful.
They are Belgian chocolates, pigs in blankets. Combination of three things that I like, actually. I like chocolate. I'm a big fan of Miss Piggy. And I can't remember what the other one was, but there you go. It was just a interesting gesture. But
It's lovely.
two of them are left. They're not all been eaten yet, but they're very tasty too. Okay, let's move on to more serious matters. Saint Bernadette Soubirous of Lourdes was a young girl who saw a vision of Virgin Mary in a grotto in southern France, and she was invited back to, I think, for a fortnight, and she saw her every day, and eventually she became the shrine became a place where people went to seek cures for all kinds of illness. People still go there now. I don't know if has anybody ever been?
No? Monica has. Monica's been.
Has she?
I have.
Yeah.
Have you?
Been.
All right.
Yeah.
I went with the school pilgrimage when I was 11, and I came back. I think I've told you about this. I won't go into it now. But the story of me coming back with Lord's water and curing a friend of skin disease. Well, I can't remember what it's called now. And his mother came round to thank my mother for my doing that. So I'm slightly on the route to saintdom, but not quite there yet.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, don't forget, Bernard. It takes hundreds of years sometimes, so it may be a while. Yeah. There we go. Okay, and there's the grotto.
That's lovely.
I'm told that the place is a bit sort of touristy and run with tacky shops and things, but I don't know whether that's true or not.
The water's very cold when you get dunked in it as well, I'll tell you that.
Yeah, I got dragged to Lourdes as a 9-year-old, and yeah, it didn't work. I'm still just as sinful, so.
Okay.
I think sometimes mind over matter helps
Yes.
some people just to feel better.
Yes.
And I think also people go because it's a kind of holiday as well, isn't it? They've got
Yeah.
Yeah, well, the thoughtful priests and people around me thought that if I got washed over there, it would wash the epilepsy out of me. So that's oh, and it's still just as it's very, very trippy today.
Yes.
I was there.
I've still got some Lord's water if you want me to cure you sometime, by the way.
Must be a bit off by now.
I'm going to say it might have gone off by now in the 60 odd years.
Water doesn't go off. No, it was brought back to me by somebody who I told about.
Here we have Saint Sebastian, who is
he's a pin-up boy, isn't he?
He's been in the gym, hasn't he?
Looks like Ronaldo.
It's a fine specimen of a man.
Yeah, just a mirror image of me. That.
Let's move our minds above the navel.
Let's stay
Saint
with this
Sebastian was he was from Narbonne in France, and he was. There's no evidence to suggest that he was gay or in any way connected with the gay movement, but his ideas were about freedom and about tolerance and all the rest of it. So consequently, because of that, he was another of Diocletian's victims, and he was tied to a tree and arrows were fired at him.
Oh dear. Oh,
they thought he was dead, but he was actually, his body was collected by, I think, St Agnes or somebody like that. I can't remember now exactly. And he was taken home and looked after. But then they grabbed him again and then they clubbed him to death later on. So yeah.
Oh, good.
But he's been adopted by the LGBTQ movement as a symbol of tolerance and all the rest of it. So this is a particularly, I would think, homoerotic sort of picture of it. But there you go. And this is the lovely Diocletian, who was a bit of a bar steward, really. He was quite a good emperor in some respects, in the fact that he cleaned up corruption. He was good with finances. He was sorted the army out, but he really had a massive dislike of Christians. And by this time, in the 3rd or 4th century AD, Christianity was beginning to get a hold, and I suppose he was frightened that Christianity would take over and destroy the order of things as they were. So he was particularly violent, and he gave Christians the opportunity to renounce their faith or be put to death in all kinds of horrible manner. But there you go. He was the #1 gangster of his day, I guess. Now here we have Thomas Aquinas, probably the most famous, or one of the most famous Christian saints. Born and raised in a castle, ran away from home to follow his vocation. He had a terrible penmanship. I don't know what that's got to do with anything.
No, I don't either.
Probably because he was a doctor.
Yeah, he's one of the 37 doctors of the church, patron
Maybe.
saints of Catholic schools and students, and the Summa Theologica, his last and unfortunately uncompleted work, deals with the whole of Catholic biology. So he's very important in the Roman Catholic faith. Is that true, Bernard? Bernard's still there? No? Okay.
Gone to sleep.
I just muted, that was all, and forgot to unmute, like we still do.
Okay.
Yeah, there are a lot of Catholic schools called Thomas Aquinas.
Yeah.
Just what is stop.
St Vitus. St Vitus. This is the wonderful Bruegel picture. I think St Vitus, another of Diocletian's victims, I have to tell you. But I suspect in the Middle Ages, saints' days were an opportunity for a bit of a, knees up and a few drinks and a bit of a party, really. So, that you think, hey, cool, it's Vitus Day next week, let's go.
Yes, Adventist dance.
Yeah.
Yes, it is.
So,
St. Vitus dance.
Sydenham's Chorea, which is the name for St. Vitus dance, which is a disease of involuntary movement. So it's kind of like as if you're always dancing all the time. But that's where it comes from. But I do think that, whilst saints were venerated, they were also used as an excuse for a bit of appeal, you know what I mean? But there you go. And there's St. Bernard, our old friend St. Bernard. Yeah.
Oh, it's lovely.
Yeah, it's a beautiful picture, isn't it?
It is.
There are lots of St. Bernards. They're all kind of Bernard of this and Bernard of that and Bernard of the other, but I just thought that was a nice picture.
Beautiful.
The railway station.
It's Saint Pancras, the patron saint of railway stations. Yeah.
Yes.
Pancras was one of the early Christian martyrs, and some of his relics were brought over to the UK by St. Augustine. And the old St. Pancras Church in that particular region of London was one of the oldest churches ever established in London, and these relics were held in there. So St. Pancras is named after the area rather than the person, I would think. There you go. Okay, so in the Eastern Orthodox, it was possible to become a saint even having lived in great sin. So we've got Mary of Egypt, who worked as a prostitute in Alexandria for 17 years from the age of 12, who later became a repented and all the rest of it, and then became a saint. Moses, the Ethiopian, who was a thief, a bandit leader, suspected murderer, and he turned tail and became a saint later on. And Saint Dismas, great name. He was the repentant thief who was on the right of Jesus on the cross, and he's the one who repented and was promised to go to heaven by Jesus. In the Oriental Orthodox Church, the Armenian, the Coptic, Syrian, etc., you've got to be dead for 50 years to qualify. So there you go. This is Mary, Mary of Egypt. She doesn't look too happy on the right, does she really? But there you go. This is Moses the Ethiopian, Moses the Black. He was, I tell you, as I said, he was a bandit and murderer and all the rest of it. But he turned around and became a good guy. And this is Dismas here on the right. So it's rather nice, iconic painting, I think. But there you go. These are examples of Orthodox churches are very keen on icons and these lovely paintings that they have all over the place. I just thought that was an example. These are all their own particulars. There is actually what she calls Saint Olga of Kiev, just to be topical. She was a torturer and murderess, but she also repented and became a saint later. Okay, and then there's got the African diaspora, which is, you know, the slaves who were transported to the New World. In Cuban, they're called Santeria. Haiti, you have Voodoo. In Trinidad, Orisha Shango, and Brazil, Lombanda Candomblé. These are saints. They're specific to their relevant culture, so these are come from different parts of Africa, but they're sort of mixed in with the Catholic rituals and services. This is the Cuban Santeria. This is the voodoo thing in Haiti. And
The Lion King.
Orisha Shango in Trinidad, which goes back to African traditions, I suppose. And this is, I love this one in Brazil, all these ladies in their lovely dresses.
Hopefully, aren't they?
Yeah, I once went to a place in Brazil called Salvador, and it was festival time, and the whole city was full of ladies like this, dressed in these kind of, you know, African type. Even though it's hundreds of years later, they still maintain their traditions, and they were all hovering around and dancing and singing, and it was really nice. Really good. Hinduism is celebrated in a lifetime rather than death, so you can be a guru. A rishi is a kind of saint. How do you feel about that? But there you go. That's where his name comes from. And interestingly, a pundit, which we now use in English for other things, it is actually a kind of Hindu saint. And of course, you have yogis, and some of them are made into gods like Vishnu, Shiva, Devi. In Buddhism, they're called arhats and bodhisattvas, tulkus. They are reincarnations of eminent practitioners, and they're seen as saints on earth. In Islam, a wali is a friend of God. It's something very different in English, doesn't it? But and the importance of saints in the different branches of Islam, as it does in the Christian Church. Whereas, for example, Methodists don't particularly venerate saints in the way that Catholics would, but they still exist. In Judaism, you have a Zadik. I don't think that's how it's pronounced.
Sadik.
Meaning a righteous person, and Hasid, presumably where Hasidic comes from, meaning pious. Sikhs have, sorry, I can't do anything about, but Who's that? Is that Shiva?
I think that's Shiva.
Yeah, with all the arms, yeah. There's Rishi.
He's not a saint, God.
And there's a Wally. I think it's a lovely picture. That it reminds me of Turkish Delight. I don't know why, but it kind of makes me think of the pictures of storybooks when I was a kid. You know, the Arabian Nights and stuff like that. It all used to have pictures like this. Oh, and this is the Judeus sort of holy man rather than, I suppose, a saint. There you go. I think it's a nice picture. That actually. I think he's got a very kind face.
Yeah.
I think he looks a bit like Steve. You know, Steve Bassett.
He does.
Yeah, he
He
does.
does.
Yeah.
He's got a lovely kind face.
Yeah.
Mm.
And here is Nelson Mandela. You see that? We venerate in a different way nowadays, but nevertheless, we still do it. And here is an example thereof. This is Graceland in America, which is, of course, home of St. Elvis. Which people visit as a shrine, absolutely, basically. You know, it's kind of. So I think, you know, perhaps the way we still venerate, I think, basically. We still put people up on pedestals and worship them in a different kind of way, perhaps, but nevertheless, it still happens, perhaps for different reasons nowadays, but there you go. So basically, that's all I have to offer you today.
Right. Graham, who's your favourite saint?
Who's my favourite saint? Oh gosh. I don't know if I have a favourite one. Go on, who's yours? Oh.
Well, I was just thinking all the St Bernards, actually, but there you go.
Well done.
Indeed, yes. Well, you know, I mean, kind of, a lot of them have been, I mean, many of the stories are apocryphal, aren't they? They're kind of based on people wishing to push forward a particular doctrine or something, but I like the idea of St. Vitus, not because it's a disease, but because it's people having a good time, you know, the kind of people dancing around a statue and having a party and imagine in the Middle Ages, life must have been really, really tricky for, you know, ordinary people that probably didn't have that much to eat, didn't have that much fun. They were working all the time to keep body and soul together. So you can understand why on a saint day they would all, you know, have a bit of a party really and enjoy themselves.
It was brilliant, Gray. Thank you.
Yeah, it was really nice.
Thank you.
Thanks,
okay, well.
Really lovely. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. That was good.
Okay, St. Graham. Yeah.
It doesn't really we should all choose a favourite saint now.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.